Hello, this is Tony Hiller from visitech.ai. In this short video, I'm going to show how, with the right tools, you can quickly understand difficult scientific problems. There's a widespread belief that La Niña events cause droughts in California and El Niño causes wet periods. La Niña is characterized by the equatorial Pacific being cool, and El Niño is the opposite. Grok says, yes, there is a notable correlation between La Niña events and drought conditions in California. So let's take a look at the actual data. We're going to go to a website I developed, app.visitech.ai. This is what the website looks like for subscribers. I'm going to issue commands by clicking the scroll wheel on the mouse, speaking into the microphone, and clicking the scroll wheel once again when I'm done talking. El Niño. Now we have a graph of monthly ENSO anomalies going back to 1950. High values are El Niño and low values are La Niña. I'm going to left click on this series to highlight it as red. Now I'm going to give another command to get the drought data. Drought. Now we have the monthly drought data for 48 states, but the state we're interested in is California. For the drought data, high numbers are wet periods and low numbers are dry periods. The vertical scale on the Niño graph is different from the vertical scale on the drought graph, so I'm going to normalize the data. I'm going to do this by clicking on the Normalize checkbox. Now both the Niño and the drought data fill up the full vertical portion of the graph. I'm going to shrink the graph vertically by pressing the V key on the keyboard and turning the mouse scroll wheel. Now let's zoom in on some of the recent years by right-clicking and dragging a rectangle. The Niño data is the thick red line and the drought data is the thin line. You can see that going back to about 2016, the two time series follow each other fairly well. But before that, in the year 2016, they were actually opposite each other. I'm going to left-click and drag the graph to see some earlier data. Now we can see that there really isn't very good correlation. Sometimes Niña occurs before drought, sometimes after, and sometimes they're just opposite each other. Let's drag the graph further to the right to look at some earlier data. Sometimes there seems to be a correlation, but at other times they go opposite each other. If there is a correlation between La Niña and drought, it's not very good. Now let's take a look at a different aspect of California drought. I'm going to get rid of the Niño graph by clicking on this X. I'm going to stop normalizing the data, and I'm going to reset the zoom so that we can see the entire drought series for California. You can see pretty clearly that over the last 10 years, California has had some of their worst droughts. I'm interested in this one in 1924, so I'm going to tell the application I want a map. Map. Now we can see the U.S. drought map for July 1924, and you can see that California was having a very bad drought. So I thought it would be interesting to look up in online newspaper archives what people were saying about the drought in California in 1924. Here's an article from the Los Angeles Evening Post from February 1924. You can see that the winter of 1922-1923 was fairly wet, but the following winter was extremely dry. A wet winter followed by a dry winter is a recipe for disaster in California. That's what causes bad fires like they had this year. And that is exactly what happened. Much of Berkeley, California burned up, and a large part of Northern California was on fire. Long dry summer are the cause of fires in nearly every county in Northern California. The fires in Berkeley were blown into the city from the nearby mountains by 60-mile-per-hour winds. You might also remember that in 1990, under similar conditions, thousands of homes burned up in nearby Oakland Hills, California. I'm very familiar with this neighborhood because my sister now lives there. With the right tools using analytic AI, we were able to gather a lot of information in a very short amount of time. Relying on traditional AI is not going to get us to a very good answer. You can visit us at app.visitech.ai and sign up for a free 1-week trial.